Well, I call this story Stoners, Mosquitoes, and Peanut Shells. It's about a burglary that happened in Poker Flat I think in 1978. We were just finishing up a spring launch operation. I think it was a Friday night, sunny afternoon. People were lazing around on the front porch of the office building. About 4 p.m., people left, and I was living in Poker Inn. I put on my running clothes, ran up to the Looky Launcher on Hilltop, and back down. It was a nice day. As I was finishing my run, I went into the payload assembly building because one of our gray Dodge four-wheel drive six-passenger pickups was sitting there blocking the front door. I was irritated that it would be left right there. I remember opening the nearby personnel door to the mirroring, looked in, and saw nothing. For now, I walked across the Poker Inn, into my room, stripped off my sweaty clothes, and walked down the hall and took a shower. I redressed and drove a couple miles back towards Fairbanks to the gold camp, where I treated myself to an expensive dinner. After dinner, I drove to Ron and Shirley's Chattanooga Lodge to have a drink before returning to Poker. They walked in. Ron Franklin immediately asked me if I knew what was going on. When I asked why, he said, well, 2 or 3 state trooper vehicles had driven by with their sirens screaming and stopped somewhere near the entrance gate to Poker. I immediately headed to Poker, and I saw an unmarked state trooper vehicle near the front gate. I stopped and talked, briefly heard they'd been called out because of a robbery. As I pulled up in front of Poker Inn, a state trooper put someone in the vehicle and drove him away. Another state trooper came over with Eldon Thompson to talk to me. If they asked me if I could tell anything about the gray truck. The pickup truck was heaped with things like soda pop and fire axes. The rear seat was filled with Poker Flat t-shirts and rather odd stuff. I was able to tell them that none of that material had been in there when I'd seen the building in front of the payload assembly building. Eldon State Trooper filled me in. Seems Eldon had heard some noise, and he walked from his trailer house, which was over behind Poker Inn, towards and he saw these 2 guys loading stuff into one of the gray trucks. And he asked them what they were doing, and he mumbled something that led them to believe they were saying they were part of the Poker Creek Watershed Project. But they were behaving very strangely, and he walked right on by them and all the way to the front gate, where he called his girlfriend Parlee on the gate phone and in the trailer house. He had her get his pistol and get in a car and drive out to the front gate and warned her to not stop for anyone. She did. On the way back in, Eldon did not see the 2 young men, and the young pickup had been moved. He sent Parley back to his trailer and set on foot with his pistol. He caught up with the 2 fellows near the back gate on the east end of near Pad 4 on the East Highway. They had gotten stuck on flat, greasy ground and appeared trying to put the vehicle into four-wheel drive. When Eldon yelled out to them, one of the fellows ran off into the brush and the other one stayed. He was very young, in his teens, and scared to death as Eldon pointed a pistol at him. Eldon walked him back to Poker Inn. He had Carly come over to Poker Inn, hold his pistol on the young buck, and call the state troopers for help. He walked back, got the pickup with his load, and drove it back to Poker Inn. Parley, in the meantime, had called the state troopers and told them she was holding a gun on a burglar. The state troopers misunderstood her, and probably because of our characteristic noisy telephone lines, thought someone with a gun was holding her hostage, a problem they'd had just a week before out in Esther, Alaska. So they donned their flak jackets and sped towards Poker. When the troopers arrived and understood the situation, they moved about until they discovered a car that looked like it belonged to these 2 young men parked alongside the road just outside the front gate of Poker. They watched the car, waiting for mosquitoes to drive their quarry out of the brush where they're sure he was hiding. Sure enough, they got their man a half hour or so after they established their watch. He told them he'd just gotten out of jail in Anchorage. He was 24 years old. He'd picked up his 17-year-old companion in Anchorage and stolen a car and were headed to Circle, Alaska, where they're going to homestead. They spotted the abandoned military site, thinking it was Poker Flat, alongside the road. They only took the things they needed to homestead. He and his young friend were stoned with marijuana, or worse. He was a fellow I had seen the troopers cart off as I drove up, and Eldon and the troopers left, and I stayed on range. As I looked about, I could see they had first pilfered my desk and took a sack of peanuts still in their shells. They left a trail of peanuts in the office building and the payload assembly building in my room in Poker Inn. How I missed them, I do not know. They had stolen the tape recorder, which they accidentally turned on. Their conversations were very stilted. Wow, look at this. We'll be able to use that. I think we gained an axe and a shovel that we never had before. I actually lost a small vial of gold dust in water that I'd gotten from Lowell Blyler's Yukon Territory mine in 1964. The teenager had run afoul of the law in Louisiana living with his parents. He had been shipped to live with his sister in Anchorage. The state of Alaska played his way home and did not prosecute him. The 24-year-old came to trial later and testified as to what I had found. I testified as to what I found. The truck was empty, then full. Turned out that he was a three-time loser.